this 9/11 thing is going to happen, so that when I try to explain what I learned in my NDE, it would kind of give credibility, I guess. So then 9/11 happened, and everyone looked at me like I was even more crazy that when it did come true, it didn't really give me the credibility. Well, it did in the back of their minds, but then people were kind of afraid of me. Like they would come to me individually, but never publicly. It was always like a secret thing. Like, I want to secretly go talk to Mellisa about this because obviously it was a very clear thing. It wasn't a vague thing like, oh, you're going to find a white feather, or oh, you're going on a boat. Like it wasn't like
Yeah.
the psychic people would say, but it was a very extreme world event that was not like, oh, there's an earthquake. Well, there's always earthquake.
Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. You've had a near-death experience and you've been through quite a bit, but I don't want to share what happened with you. If you could just tell us a little bit about what happened that brought you to where you are today.
Okay, so I've actually had multiple near-death experiences. The first one, I was very, very young. Um, I supposedly swallowed my tongue, but I don't think that's what happened. But anyways, long story short, in that near-death experience, I was still only like a toddler. I was very small. So what happened first was I went up into the ceiling, and then I didn't really know what was going on, but I was fine. You're like 2 years old, you don't really, we're not thinking about it. So then I was just kind of, I guess, following my body. And then we ended up in the hospital, but this was way back in the early 70s. So it was like, and I looked like an infant. I was only 2. So I was in the children's ward. And so there was like half of the wall was cut off, and then there was glass on the top. And then so the parents could see through it, the newborn babies. So I was in that area. And at the time, it was still like kind of like a nice wood at the bottom. It wasn't painted those hospital colors yet. So I was up in there, as watching my body, and I guess because I was younger, I didn't do the tunnel of light or do any of that. At that point, just I guess spirit family or guides came, and I was like, well, I swallowed my tongue, is what they're saying, and I was telling them what happened, and they're like, well, it's okay. No, you didn't swallow your tongue. But anyways, they started telling me about things that I would be doing. Like they told me, for example, as gently as they can to tell everyone just silly little things that were age appropriate at the time, that Santa Claus is not real, and just things like this, like about medication. Don't take any medications because it dehydrates people's skin. It makes them age way faster, and it doesn't actually take care of the problem. So I was like, right at, as when I came back, I'm this 2 year old starting to preach it, no medication, Santa Claus isn't real, all these kinds of things. And then basically I ended up very, I don't know what the description is, but basically as soon as someone would lie, I would tell on them instantly. So I must have been like the most annoying child to live with on the planet. But basically, someone would buy a bunch of presents for Christmas, and then they'd start handing them out, and I would say, "Oh, that's a watch. Oh, that's a Mickey Mouse spoon." That's like I was like naming every single thing in the box before I would open it, and so it must have been frustrating for the adults around me. But yeah, so that was the first one, and then I went through school. I was like in kindergarten, and I ended up actually bringing, because I knew that vitamins were okay, but medications were bad. They're going to rapidly age people. So as in kindergarten, I actually got kicked out of school because I brought my Flintstone vitamins to school and was giving them to the kids. the cold season. I was like, you just need your vitamin C. So I basically turned early 70s, turned into this kind of health fanatic, which back then was not okay. It was very frustrating for everyone. So then I had another one when I was about, I guess, 5.5. I had a fever. And this one, again, I didn't go to the tunnel or light or anything. I guess I didn't need that experience because I was, again, so young. At that point in my life, I'd been through a lot of like very harsh, hard things, as most children in the 70s. So that time when the spirit family or whatever, they came and they were like, you have to, don't take it personally. I know these things are hard, but you have to like love these people because the whole reason we're here is that these people need to be repaired because all the bad things happening to me happen to those people, which is why they're doing these bad things to all the other kids, right? It's basically, I learned that all these adults were technically still kids, even though they look like adults. So I was learned instead of putting all that hurt on me, the hurt was so I could understand how they were feeling and try to give them the unconditional love, the understanding, and just keep trying to show them that. Like instead of making it about me, I had to realize this is to show me how they feel and why they're doing these horrible things. So, that one kind of again made me a little bit annoying because then people were very defiant about it. They'd be like, you're just making everyone else look bad and all these things because I wouldn't react in the way that society was expecting. They were just expecting me to have a tantrum or a fit or something instead of going, instead of saying, oh, it's okay, you'll be okay, and sending this person love, because then they look like the bad person for because people usually want to put like a witch hunt out on someone who they've wronged. So if they wrong someone, they want to smear their name and put a witch hunt and all that stuff. So someone would wrong me, and I would say, what's wrong? Why did you do that? Blah, blah, blah. And then it would make them look worse because then I wasn't reacting in a way that would justify their witch hunt. So that was kind of what came out of the second one. And then the third one, as a teenager, at this point, you've had so much indoctrination and people trying to steal all your integrity from you and everything, because I think most kids are born knowing this. But by that point, I'd had the heavy metal injections, I'll call them, and I had gone to the dentist, and I was so proud of myself. I had no cavities. It's like, yay, no cavities. And I was bragging to the family. I was like, I'm so glad I have no cavities because then I won't have to get fillings because we learned how poisonous mercury is and all these things. And instead of being proud of me, of course, they're like, we're going to get all your teeth filled with mercury right now. And I was like, what? I was like, no, I have no cavities. And they're like, well, then you'll never get cavities. We'll prevent your cavities. And I was like, no, it's poisonous. Like, why would you do that? So then I didn't have an NDE from that, but I had such I felt like a failure shock. Like, how come I can't help these people and it seems to get worse? So then my next NDE was probably about 4 years after that, because that, along with many violations, like just free will violations, I say, which everything on the planet is a free will violation that goes against, like stealing is a free will violation, inappropriate things are a free will violation, lying is a free will violation because people can't make their proper response or choices if they're being lied to. And also people lose opportunities and they're being manipulated. So I'm just being Captain Obvious about the free will violations. So about 3 years after the mercury filling, it just felt like such a betrayal. And so many betrayals piled up at that point. You know, I would trust a friend from school, they would sleep over and they'd steal my purse and all my things. I would just felt like devastated. And it was too much when your heart is trying to love everyone and they're doing the complete opposite, nonstop betrayal. At that point, I will say I ended myself at that time. So what happened in this one was one of these really cool ones you hear about. So I didn't have the white light at that one yet, but I went straight where I call home. I went straight home. It was like the Tartarians, you know, the Tartaria kind of thing. It
Yeah.
was like that. But and I had no religious background, never read a Bible, very atheistic family. So it was like beautiful Tartarian like greenhouse things that and buildings. But the streets, this is what made me look into the Bible, read it enough to know that, you know, I do like a lot of it, but there's a lot of agendas in there. But this is where I saw that like the golden streets, the streets were paved with gold. And then that's where I learned about everything going on right now. And I had to make a choice. So I learned about the Bill Gates, all these things that are happening right now. I learned about like everything, like how much of a lie that religion is, but I still had to learn about religion because unconditional love isn't unconditional tolerance, like what religion teaches. Unconditional love is actually something that we need towards ourselves as much as everyone else. So if someone makes a mistake, that's one thing, but if they intentionally violate your free will, we have to have boundaries. We have to say, no, that's wrong, even though it causes a lot of negative feedback. So there, I learned all about that and about this systematic trap that society is getting put in through the taxes and the extortion and how all of these regulations were going to be a lie, which so much of Generation X, again, I was born in the 70s, it's like they were born with that already, knowing that without having to have an NDE. But I was, you know, I needed reminders. And so I decided, okay, well, I know what's coming up with the Bill Gates thing, mandates and all that. So from, I guess this was like 1983, 84 time. From then on, I went on a rampage about not accepting inoculations. So I did like my first walkout in school. It was in junior high school. I told everyone about heavy metal and all these things and avoid those. And so I called myself a conscientious objector and told everyone, don't do it. It's going to take away your memories. It's going to take away your dream abilities. And again, with these things dehydrate people so they age way faster. That's why I'm always telling people to drink chlorophyll. Anything that you can eat, like cilantro, the green and plants, things that will it's chelation therapy. So I was telling people about chelation therapy back in the mid 80s when this had happened to try to like keep your health, basically, keep yourself healthy. And I'd still like progressively incorporated the first two NDEs into everything I was doing. And we didn't know who Bill Gates was yet at that time. So I was trying to warn about that as well, about how these people who weren't elected, even though I've never voted, I don't believe in voting, but because I had to put it in a framework for society at that time, I had to explain to them that you're not going to vote for these people. They're just going to impose themselves on you, and you're going to have to oppose it. You've got to stick together. And so that's what I learned in that one. So then, of course, life makes you forget, gaslights you, again. And so at this point, I had gone into, let me see, I'd met a boy, of course, and he was a Jehovah Witness. So this was my first time getting into the Bible. So I started reading the Bible because we wanted to get married and you had to, I guess, get baptized first and all these things. So started reading the Bible, and sure enough, there's the golden streets and all these other things that I had seen when I went to like the Tartaria type of atmosphere. And so I became completely dedicated to the Bible, and but I'd be reading things, little things that would jog in your conscience, and I'd be like taking notes. Okay, that's wrong. That's not true. This is wrong. That's not true. This is wrong. But I still went ahead with it for some reason. A young girl, I was only like 22, went ahead and got baptized, which now I know means absolutely nothing. But at the time, you're indoctrinating yourself with all these scriptures, which most of them are very wonderful. They're beautiful. They help with life, but a lot of them are not the true creator. Like they're not, and also our creator, from what I understand, is more of a divine mother. So you're in the back, your conscience tells you every time that something's wrong, but even though I'd had already a few near-death experiences, you push it in the back of your mind. You push it in the back of your mind. It's like you're telling your higher self, wait till later. We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later, until it gets to the point where you stop listening. So at that point, I had my next NDE was right before 9/11 happened. So that was when, sure enough, the white light, that was it. There was no tunnel, no nothing. It was just boom, white light. You're not getting this special treatment with Tartaria this time. It's the white light. We're going to have to give you a bit of a lecture here. You forgot that, religion is not the truth. There's a lot of good sayings in there, but that's not the way to go home and raise your frequency to the proper home frequency. If you think of it like radio stations, obviously, right? The universe is like one big radio, and then the different dimensions are the stations. So basically what happened, well, I learned about what happened in 2012 during that one. So this was before 9/11. I was told about 9/11. And so in order to get the attention of the religious people at the time, I went around and told them all about it. So they would believe me that I was talking to the true creator, and tell them what adjustments needed to be made from their belief system. So I was like, yeah, the Twin Towers, they're going to do it intentionally. It's not the narrative they're going to say. And everyone's like, of course, I looked like a complete nutcase, but I had to stick to my integrity and tell them what was going to happen. People are like, she is weird. I looked weird, but I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I told like basically the whole entire town, everyone I knew, they didn't have to be religious. They could be atheists, they could be anything. So I was just trying to tell them this 9/11 thing is going to happen, so that when I try to explain what I learned in my NDE, it would kind of give me credibility, I guess. So then 9/11 happened, and everyone looked at me like I was even more crazy, that when it did come true, it didn't really give me the credibility. Well, it did in the back of their minds, but then people were kind of afraid of me. Like they would come to me individually, but never publicly. It was always like a secret thing. Like, I want to secretly go talk to Mellisa about this, because obviously it was a very clear thing. It wasn't a vague thing like, oh, you're going to find a white feather, or oh, you're going on a boat. Like it wasn't like the psychic people would say, but it was a very extreme world event that was not like, oh, there's an earthquake. Well, there's always earthquakes. So it had to be very precise for people to, jog their attention. So that one was basically to give me credit to explain the parts of the scriptures that are true, and then explain the parts that are agendas. So I went on for probably a good 15 years or so. Yeah, no, 10 years? 15 years until I had another NDE, which was basically right before 2012. And then in this one, I saw a vision of like a giant meteor hitting the earth and looking up, and basically it was like a big red giant fireball coming and hit the earth, and all the people were looking up at me with these like glowing green eyes, like help, help, help. And what my lesson was kind of in that one was, it was like basically that was in Sagittarius arms. So think of the universe again like a radio, like united in verse, the radio, and the different dimensions are in different parts of the like the Milky Way. So when this meteor thing happened in 2012, that was in Sagittarius arm. And so what happened then, which is when the Mandela effect started, was we had to decide, what are we going to do here? This, no one's listening. There'd been many more like me that have had NDEs. So basically in the ether, we're like, no one's listening. It's getting 10 times worse. What do we do? How do we do this? We can't just keep like destroying the earth, floods, fires, all these things. We need to figure something to protect the rest of us who do want to like love with the chickens and the deer and grow gardens and build without it being destroyed. So how do we do this without stooping to their level and hurting people? So what was decided was that would be like kind of their final chance, and this acceleration process would go on that we're in right now. So Sagittarius arm, everyone came from, so what the Christians think of as the rapture happened in that event, 2012, but it was everybody. It wasn't just the Christians. It was every single person walking the planet at that time. We all transported to where we are now in Orion, which is a different radio station, if you look at it that way. So this is why everything has accelerated. Like people started having all the Mandela effects. That's when it changed from Bernstein Bears and Luke, I am your father, and the spelling of definitely, all these things started happening. The celebrities that were alive again, I guess maybe they wanted to get a few more chances. So then all of these things, Mandela effects, everything accelerated to wake people up so they would start listening to us. Because if you think about it, even probably like 5 years ago, most NDEers, if you tried to speak openly about this in the library or if you're at karaoke or something, people would think you were crazy and you might get sent away. It's only been the last 4 years that people can finally speak up this. And there's been a lot of grifters and people with agendas that I've seen. But basically, this acceleration process is to break down the, there's so much indoctrination in religion that is very toxic. Like most people think, oh, once saved, always saved. And they also think that the person they call Jesus, which is a Christ being, there's been millions of Christ beings. So they hijack that character to say Jesus is the only way. So that means people have to stick to only their agenda. So they plagiarized and basically exploited the situation with this person who was speaking so much truth. Then they unalived him. It was not a sacrifice to save the world. It was, they unalived him to shut him up, because sacrificing an innocent thing does not let a person avoid their accountability. It does not take away the harm they've done to others, because the harm they do to others lowers the frequency. Then people are stuck in a Sagittarius radio station. And this on Orion radio station is kind of a middle ground, a sifting ground. Okay, this person has had every opportunity to stop doing harm. They're going to have to go back to Sagittarius for like 2,600 years. I'm hoping 26,000 years instead. But they're going to have to go back and put up with all this karma. And when they stab someone in the back, they're going to get stabbed in the back. They're going to have to learn that way because at this point, there's too much suffering. All the people that came here to help, which is basically a lot of people think, oh, I was chosen and all this stuff. No, every single person born came here to help, knowing they might be corrupted. They might end up getting stuck on Sagittarius arm. They might get the lessons and go, okay, this was a free will violation. I need to stop doing that. This hurt that person and lowered their radio station frequency. So I have to stop doing that. And I have to help others to see how much harm they're doing. If we really want freedom, we really want to be in a world where we can be gardeners. It's basically, we're supposed to be here having an arts and crafts potluck party. That's what this planet was meant for. Instead, it got, all the greed and exploitation. So we're at this point in time now where everyone who expires is either going home to like the future, which is in the ether, or they're going to have to go back to Sagittarius arm and be stuck with each other. That's what I guess what the Bible would call hell, because it's not going to be pleasant when there's not a lot of people there showing unconditional love and teaching to stop violations. And then the rest of us that want to repair the earth, we can stay in Orion's, I think we're in Orion's belt right now. So in Orion's spur is where they can go to start the potluck party, all the gardening and probably creating like new plants, new species, sort of like in the Anastasia books. I don't know if you've read those, but it'll be
the redwood singing redwood trees.
Yeah. So it'll be kind of like that in Orion Spur. So right now everyone's kind of like, okay, I've learned my lessons. I'm going to Orion Spur as my next stepping point, or I can go home, learn a lot of the Akashic records, and then come down for vacation on potluck party land in Orion Spur. And the ones who cannot stop, they cannot stop hurting others, knowing very well, because everyone knows exactly what they're doing now. They say a narcissist knows exactly what they're doing. So they're going to Sagittarius arm when they reincarnate. And this is just kind of the end sifting ground. So that's why I was saying quite a few years ago, we go through global group therapy, which we can see we are doing that now, going through global group therapy. People are learning to put up boundaries, go no contact with narcissists instead of being a flying monkey and learning these harmful behaviors. People are really finally getting a rein on themselves. Like, I no longer want to participate in gossip. It absolutely destroys people's lives. So people are learning no more gossip. Put up a boundary, because when we put up boundaries that protect ourselves, we're teaching people to stop violating other people's boundaries. Because we can't necessarily judge these people that are violating our boundaries if they've never had a boundary. So it's not to say that person's evil. It's just to say that, if they've always gotten away with doing all these horrible things, no one said no before, like stop, then they're going to keep doing them. But if everyone starts saying stop, then that person can have a dark night of the soul and really examine themselves and go, what are my thoughts, my words, my actions? How are they affecting everyone else? And a lot of people who you would have thought of as evil have woken up and repented, and they're like, what was I doing? I was joining in the gossip group, destroying lives, and just like it does say in scriptures, it severed their conscience. Well, now it's time to peel that severed conscience raw and all look at ourselves and see, okay, how is this going to make someone else feel? Am I setting up a boundary so they don't feel comfortable harming others anymore? Or am I being an enabler? That was one of my biggest things. That I had to keep learning that lesson over and over. Mellisa, you're being an enabler. You have to let these people fall on their face. You can still say, hi, I love you, but you don't help them out by letting them harm themselves or others. So, yeah, I just feel like at this point, society has woken up so much that everyone is just speaking their truth and speaking their truth and speaking their truth to the point where the ones that don't want to stop doing harm, they're not going to, which is why we have all these well, I don't want to say natural disasters going on and all these horrible things, because the ones that are stuck in the religion paradigm where an innocent person should be sacrificed to so they can avoid accountability, that whole ridiculous paradigm, the ones who are trying to stick into that paradigm are going back to Sagittarius. They're going to have to look, they're going to remember all these lessons that we're telling them now. Sacrificing a person is not a way to undo harm to others. It does more harm. So it's just not true. Saying that Jesus is the only way, that's not true either. There's been millions and millions of people just like Jesus, but they don't want you to listen to them because it goes against their narrative. And a lot of the narratives in there are so divisive, like saying that women are less than, and they're very racist, and you don't realize that you do. If you're a first-time reader, you're like, why would God choose these people over these people because of their bloodline? Like, it just makes no sense. It should be each individual as they come into the realm according to their integrity, not according to who their parents are. But religion teaches all that. So people are finally deconstructing from religion, which is going to really heal the planet quickly, because they're not going to be able to cling to these little justifications of horrible things that they do. That justification permission is going out the window. So that's going to help. But you can see now that a lot of people are rapidly leaving the planet, going back to Sagittarius arm. Many are going, maybe they just couldn't handle it. Like, a lot of people have unalived themselves in the last, more than ever in the last 20 years. So a lot of them, they went to Orion Spur. So they're like starting the garden party. They're not necessarily going home yet. And then those of us here in the middle are just finishing these lessons, giving them their last chance to learn and pick a choice. Do you want to go back to Sagittarius, or do you want to go start the arts and crafts garden potluck party, or you can just go home? It depends on your lessons, but you can't really be here learning about nature and how to create with nonstop extortion and gatekeeping. We have zero freedom at this point. So we have to remove the gatekeepers.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. I wanted to ask, I know Dolores Cannon talks about how the Earth's splitting, not physically, but there will be those that will, it's almost like the Matrix, there will be those that will see the new reality and those that just will not, and they'll be living in a different reality. Is that what you're referring to by going back to Sagittarius arm? Is that like going back to like a 3D reality where they keep living out that kind of life, not necessarily leaving this earth? The vibration is just shifted. So when you're referring to the radio station, it's that they're tuning into that vibration. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, but they're going to remember everything that they learned during this ending time. Like, it's the closing off period where we're changing the radio station dial. So those people will reincarnate on Sagittarius, but they'll have a chance because the collective will remember all these lessons. and be working on themselves. And then the ones who are exhausted and just need to heal, those people will go to the Orion Spur radio station, and we're in Orion's arm, I think, or something right now. So those of us here are just kind of guiding people to which way you're going to go. It's not hell like in religion, because there's no such thing as death, but they are going to be better off because they're going to remember all this. They're going to remember, and they're going to be like, wait a second, that's not right. You don't unalive an innocent person so that I can keep lying. Like it just, they're going to get that logic. So even in Sagittarius, things will have an opportunity to get better. So the next time around, when they have a chance to, like right now, this middle ground, sifting ground, then a lot more are going to just go, oh yeah, they're going to wake up and get it. So they're not going to be like completely memory wipe and not progress. They're still going to progress, but they're just going to have a lot more work to do because everyone else, they need a break. They need to go forward and stop this suffering. Like the free will violations just can't continue against all of us because it's getting to a point. What happened was basically kind of in the beginning, and someone who got too much power, for example, who was violating free will, violating it. When you're violated, you feel that wrench in your gut, right? It feels like you've been punched in the gut. And so instead of that person refraining from being punched in or punching other people in the gut emotionally, they taught everyone else to do the same thing so they wouldn't look bad. Instead of me, the emperor with no clothes, not looking bad, I'm going to make everyone else look as bad as I do. So that's kind of what's happened. I know, again, I'm being Captain Obvious, but so the people that had that mentality are going to go and have a wake-up call in Sagittarius and realize they were so wrong. Instead of bringing everyone else down, they should have brought themselves up, been an adult, been a mature person. They should have raised their own vibration and held themselves accountable instead of taking things out on everyone else. But now it's corrupted so much. There's too many people that have that same mindset. So yeah.
I think the biggest problem is, like you talk about narcissism, is that a lot of people, they've been allowed to continue because they haven't been held in check. Like you say, there's been no boundaries. People think, well, if it doesn't affect me personally, well, what do you want me to do? So it grows like a weed and it grows out of control. And now you're in a position where there are those people that have been through, I see it this way, like a lot of people that have been through narcissistic abuse, they see through the narcissist, they see through these people. And so they don't just trust everybody and anybody anymore. Those that haven't are still blindly following and trusting what they're saying because they haven't been hurt. So they don't actually know the difference between when they're being lied to or when they're not. I mean, this whole, as you've talked about this last 5 years ago, what happened is, people they don't know what to believe. So they just blindly follow along with all the mandates and do what they need to do, thinking it's the right thing to do. I don't even know if they are flying monkeys. I just think they are totally unaware, totally unconscious. And they haven't woken up. And it's not really, like you said, I don't think it's like a punishment that they have to go to relive a 3D reality, but they're unconscious. They're not awake.
Yeah.
They haven't seen what is reality. So they're just playing out like the Matrix. They took the blue pill.
Yeah, it's not a punishment at all. Like I said,
Yeah.
it's not like hell like in the religions. It's you're just gonna go and try to do better next time. Yeah, so it's not a punishment. And when you look back, like it wasn't too bad over there because we didn't have this raw division going on. So in Sagittarius, compared to right now, it's probably 10 times more gentle because it wasn't this like absolute duality that we have in this dimension where you have to face everything so quickly. It'll be a lot slow for them. But it wasn't too bad if you look back to 2012.
Yeah.
But now they're all going to have that same awareness and memories of what happened here and be like, oh, they're going to start helping teach themselves and teach each other. And they'll catch up. Everyone's going to catch up. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of like less damage on the way.
Yeah, I think that might be good because the way things are happening now, it's getting so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mind gets blown because I just get, dots of joy in all the time. And there's days that I think, just calm down. Can we just slow down a little bit?
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's like even though
But
I know everything that's going on, I still get like so like especially with all the energy from the sun coming in and all that, I can get so stressed out that I'm just like paralyzed. Even though I know the whole everything, I can't imagine how people are feeling that don't know what's going on. If I get
yeah,
paralyzed, they must be completely paralyzed. So I'm trying to
yeah.
be as easy on people as I can. Like, let's go sing some karaoke. Let's go to the beach. Let's do things to just make everyone relax and feel better. Because we're
Cool.
learning now through the
Yeah,
100th monkey effect. So we don't need
yeah,
to preach to anybody.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I actually think when there's chaos around you and everything's spinning, the best place to be is just going inward rather than going outward. And that is, staying not it's just standing still, whether you want to call it paralyzed or not. It's just saying, I don't need to go anywhere. Things are moving so fast. I just need to go in instead of going out. Yeah. Tell me about the mercury fillings. You said you didn't want, and they said you have to have. What happened there?
Um, yeah, it felt that was like the one of the biggest betrayals it felt like in my life because I told the people, I was like, we learned in school it's one of the most poisonous things that you can't even have it in your hands. So why would you take something that you can't have in your hands and put it in your mouth? Like, why would
Yeah,
you do that? So
yeah,
before that happened, I was like one of those people, I would like sit down and play the piano by ear. So whatever TV commercial was on, I would just sit down and play that TV commercial without looking at a notes or anything like that. And I would do like I'd play like Jump from Van Halen. I just knew how to play it. Everything was like a clear channel because I feel like heavy metals are one of the ether blockers. So if we have our clear message from the ether, then of course you can play the piano by ear because when we all expired in past times, a lot of people think, oh, I was Cleopatra or I was Albert Einstein. Like all these people think they're the one same person, but they weren't, but we all were. So when you go home, we're all become one, a lot more one. You know all of Cleopatra's memories. You can look through her Akashic records and be her, like playing a movie. Oh, okay, I'm gonna play that movie. So like, thousands of people have played that movie. So then they come back thinking they were her, the incarnation of Cleopatra. But in actual fact, we all were if we chose to play that book. But yeah, as for the mercury fillings and like all the spraying that they're doing, heavy metals are a block to the ether because again, we're talking about radio stations,
yeah.
different radio stations. So our connection is much stronger without the heavy metal, which is why I'm like, everybody drink your chlorophyll, eat your cilantro, anything green, your seaweed, everything green helps get rid of the heavy metal barriers because we are like electricity, we're electrical beings. So that's what a lot of the agenda is with the heavy metals in the sky, the aluminum cans, cookware, because it blocks our director connection to our most important radio station, which is from the ether at home.
Well, did you get fillings, mercury fillings, or not?
Yeah, they filled up my entire mouth. So
All
I
of
was
all of your teeth.
yeah, all of my molars, up top and bottom. I finally got them removed in about 2016, 16 or something. I got them all removed. But yeah, I just couldn't believe that someone would do that, because then, of course, I had all the chronic fatigue and all the health problems that come from mercury poisoning.
So surely the dentist wouldn't be allowed to do that if there's no cavities. I mean,
Yeah, it was
what
back
would
in the 80s. So the person who took me to the dentist was very, remember, I'm a child, I'm only 12, I don't have a choice, was
yeah,
very convincing, well at convincing people to do what they are told. So
well,
yeah. Yeah, it was kind of
yeah,
sad.
because I know even just removing the mercury can cause problems to your system. You can't just take
Oh
it all out. You have to go really slow and do it like proper, because it does affect. I think mercury can settle between your two brain hemispheres as well, cause a lot of problems there.
yeah, I had like where it felt like my bones felt like they were full of shattered glass. And it still feels like that when it gets cold out. So I'm like, I get very scared that it's going to be cold. So I have huge heating bills just trying to get rid of that feeling of the shattered glass. But I'm fine in the winter, or I'm fine in the summer. In the winter time, I'm basically completely paralyzed. I can't do anything much at all in the winter. But I can if I have like I turn the heater on all the time, and I do have I finally got my own like suntan lights, just a little
Yeah,
lamp, so I can get the vitamin D, which helps a lot.
yeah,
But yeah, it's like I find in the summer, as soon as I can turn the heater off in the house, because there's still all that circulating air, it's not the greatest. And I can open the door in the sunshine and be warm. It's like I turn into a completely different person. Like I'm just alive, I'm happy, I'm a lot more productive. Whereas in the winter, I can put on a good face and look like I'm productive. And then
yeah.
I'll like socialize for like 3 or 4 hours a week. And then the rest of the week, I'm just laid out flat. Just like I cannot wake up walking. I'm just kind of laying down almost that entire time. So, but that's
Is
okay. I've been doing the chelation therapy.
is that from the mercury or is that from something else? Is it an autoimmune problem?
I think that was all caused by the mercury. So yeah, because
Yeah,
that's where the
because I know,
chronic fatigue came in.
yeah, because I know you mentioned the inoculations that they also force children to go through. And I actually I watched a documentary about that a couple of weeks ago. And I think children now are getting 24 by the age of 12. It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
so
absolutely
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah, because the ones that aren't getting inoculated, they are so like they have so much information from the ether, like how to do the free energy so easily, like composting solutions, all the like everything would be solved in like a few weeks if they would
Yeah.
listen to the children because they have all the information. Free energy is so simple, but
Well, you got
they
to,
inoculate
yeah.
them to shut them up to keep their little monopoly game going.
And also, what are they putting in the water? Because that also subdues the population quite substantially.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you had another NDE just before 9/11. What happened then? Was it like, did you black out or what
No,
happened?
that one was basically I cut my hand. I was cutting some chicken, cut my hand, and I guess I lost a way too much blood. So that one went straight to the white light, and that's where I got my uh, lecture. Like, wake up! What are you doing? You know, religion. You know, I was supposed to go to the religions to bring people out of the religions, and or at least tell them the truth about the scriptures. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus is not the only way. It's all about how you are you violating someone or not? If you make someone feel bad, that's not a violation, you know? It's when you steal from someone and you take from them, those are violations.
Yeah.
Because religion today is all about virtue signaling. They think things that aren't bad, like if someone is like has drinks in moderation or smoking, that's religion revolves entirely around drinking and smoking. If you don't drink and you don't smoke, you're still stealing. They're still like doing horrible things to children. They're still cheating on each other. They're lying to each other. They're some of the worst gossiping, slandering people on the planet are in religion. And so I learned that you're not supposed to become one of them. You're supposed to remind them of these things they're doing are harming themselves and others, because they are harming themselves more than the other person, because they're severing their conscience more and more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think religion, it's that dogmatic approach where, you can beat up your wife and your children during the week and repent your sins on Sunday and then start again on Monday. It's very, that I could never reconcile in my brain. But I
Yeah.
think there is a place for it. For some people, it is a place where they can go and worship and connect and have that sense of connection. I suppose if there are a lot of people praying in together in one room, it would actually elevate the energy. I actually went
Yeah.
to one of these. They call it Rhema Church in South Africa. I don't know, like where everyone sings. I don't know what kind of church is that. Like a gospel
And
type. That
yeah.
was amazing. That was good fun. But they start preaching hellfire and brimstone, then my brain just zones out of it
Yeah.
because I can't
Absolutely.
understand how you could have two different gods.
Yeah,
It's
like
just,
the part about church that is wonderful is the singing, getting together and singing. That's the probably the only productive part about it, is that positive energy from singing. But also another thing about religion is um, Jesus said to give to the poor and the needy and all this. Well, what religion did is said, "Oh, just give us tithes and we'll help the poor and needy."
yeah,
But no,
yeah.
we don't do that at all. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and it's amazing how a lot of these people have got jets and mansions and
yeah, multiple
well,
jets.
good for them. But I wonder how
Yeah.
many poor people they're actually helping.
It wasn't like I was getting all love and light. It's like, you know better. Why do you keep like ignoring what you know that you're supposed to do? Because a lot of people are like, wow, you've had so many NDEs. You must be special. I'm like, no, I've had so many NDEs because I'm an idiot and I wasn't listening. So, like, for someone who even knows it's been this difficult to stay on the right track and keep the proper message going, because even I keep falling back into the same narrative, like questioning myself and things like that. Well, not anymore, but up until about 5 years ago, I was even starting to like read the Bible again and start apply things to myself that made me feel like I just wanted to jump off a bridge. I'm like, this is really evil. It's like totally shame inducing, guilt inducing, instead of solutions oriented. If it
Yeah,
was solutions orientated, it would say simply, don't lie, don't gossip. If you've gossiped about someone, you got to tell the truth. I'm sorry, I was jealous of this person, so I ran with the story and saved that person's reputation that I've destroyed. Things like that. But
yeah,
everyone's waking up and doing this. The whole collective, more people than not, are very far advanced from anything that I learned in my NDEs. People are really grabbing onto and igniting their integrity. So I feel like I'm the kindergarten, and most of the collective is like way up in college or university now, and I'm the kindergarten person, even though I had the honor of all these NDEs. So, well, it's not an honor. It was just trying to get me back on track, but the collective is very, very awake and far advanced than anything that I have ever learned from my NDEs. So, you know, that's why all the turmoil right now, it's gone completely crazy. All the storms and fires and everything is so clearly intentionally removing people from the realm right now. It feels so sinister that they're blocking the bridges and things, blocking people. They're saying mandatory evacuation, but then they're preventing them from evacuating at the same time, that two-edged sword. So it's sinister what's going on right now. But on the other hand, people are just wide awake, and you know, the
Well, I
ones that
just
are
think,
can go somewhere wonderful.
yeah, I just think like it's so in your face at the moment. It's so obvious what they've been doing that you wonder why they haven't seen through it yet, and they still haven't seen through it. They still justify the behavior. It's almost, I used to say this about narcissistic abuse, is that when you're in a relationship with them, it's like they've put a magic spell on you and you're covered in this fairy dust. You can't see the real person. You're seeing something else. It's only when that spell's broken that you actually realize what you're dealing with. And that's what it feels like, and I think there have been people talking about like a kind of mass hypnosis that people are going through. But that's what it's almost like. It's like it's so obvious and they can't see it. And they will carry on saying, no, I don't know what you're talking about. You're the one who's crazy. And
Yeah.
it's just,
Well, I think
and
a lot
those,
of
okay, those are the people
fluoride.
that are just not going to wake up.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, a lot of that's the fluoride in the water, and the collective has been through so much abuse from uh, the usurpers of our personal sovereignty. They've been through so much abuse that they have Stockholm syndrome, I think. So I think the Stockholm syndrome people will likely be able to just go home and heal rapidly there and really look at themselves, see it. Am I a free will violator or am I a free will respecter? Because that's what it's getting down to. Free will violators can go to Sagittarius, free will respecters will go to Orient Spur. It's not really as horrible as it feels horrible right now here, but it's not gonna, like, they're gonna go back and it'll be Berenstein Bears still. We're gonna probably not even care. Well, like Bernstein, Berenstein, who cares? So yeah,
Well, there is that dual reality, and part of me wonders if they haven't also just made all of that up, that they've kind of scrubbed the internet. They've got like a new logo, scrubbed the internet and said, no, we never had that. There are people that go into the archives and they'll find a video or an old beta tape or a VHS tape or something where it is on there. And now they're just trying to, it's almost like you say, gaslighting. It's like I wonder if that did happen, or maybe it was another reality. Who knows? But sometimes they're just trying to make up, because that's what narcissists do. They'll say to you, "I never said that." You could have
yeah.
it on tape, and they'll say they said it, and they say, "No, that wasn't me." It's that.
Oh, I know, it's crazy. Yeah, it is. Yeah, but
Yeah.
no, with the Mandela effects, I definitely like, some of them are very real. Like the Luke, I am your father. It was that in Sagittarius arm because I had an ex who had that name, and I would always go, I am your father at that point because I didn't want to say his name. And in this reality, either they've intentionally wiped it from every VHS tape, the gaslight, but how can they do that? Every single tape says now it says, no, I am your father. And like the Ed McMahon
I know.
publishes Figuring Out, that one is really easy to prove he did it. We all know he did the publishes. So that one could definitely be a gaslighting situation because
Yeah,
he
there's
even made
that
a
one of
song about it.
Tinkerbell as well, that at the end she has
Yeah.
the wand and then it does that
Yeah,
like
she
light
goes,
up, and they said that never happened. And I knew it happened.
yeah, yeah, we all know that happened. But yeah, it could just be one giant sinister gaslighting. But I honestly think it still does that in Sagittarius arm. Tinkerbell still goes ring ding. and it's still Ed McMahon Publishers Clearinghouse, all back in Sagittarius Arm. Here, we don't really care because we know we're not going to care at all. Eventually, we'll be like, okay, I understand the dimensions now. It's just one big radio. The different dimensions are different radio stations. I can
Yeah.
choose this one or this one. Well, a lot of us would like to choose a free will station now. That's all.
If you're aware of it, you're not going to go back. I think once you're
Yeah.
awake, you cannot go unawake.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, there's no way I can
impossible.
do it.
No,
Impossible.
no.
A lot of
So, what would
people
you
might
say
say,
to people in order to wake them up? What message would you have for people?
um, hmm. Right now, I think the most important thing is forgiving yourself and self-love because a lot of people are like they're afraid to own their stuff because they feel guilty about well I we've all spread false doctrine at points in our lives. But if you can forgive yourself, love yourself, then you can say to others, I was so wrong. Like it doesn't hurt me to say, oh, I was so wrong. Whereas before, when I had this guilt and shame that was piled on by society, it was so hard to just admit my flaws, correct of the wrongdoing, and move on. But now it's everyone's able to own their things. It's easy,
Yeah,
I was wrong. I'm so sorry. But that comes through forgive yourself, forgive the others, but love yourself. Like it's okay. You're allowed to be wrong. You're allowed to like try better the next time. You're allowed to. I wrap myself out all the time. I will if I did something wrong. I'm like I'm the first one to tell on myself. Like oh I did this and this and this and I'm so wrong and now I see that I have to fix this and I'll go fix it. But that comes through self-forgiveness and self-love because it's so easy to forgive other people and to the point where it's toxic. There's toxic forgiveness. People are
yeah,
finally learning to go no contact. But yeah, love yourself, forgive yourself. You matter as much as everyone else. We always think we're the only one that doesn't matter. No, you matter as much as the person you love the most and way more.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a message a lot of people need to hear because they are still thinking that self-love is selfish. And it's not. It's the most loving thing you could do because how do you fill someone's cup when yours is empty? Like how you can't give something you don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, and again, it comes from the structures. A lot of people are taught, like you talked about religion, we'll pay you and you speak to God on our behalf, or you pay the poor. And people think if I love somebody else, then they will love me back. But why do you have to have the middleman? You can just say, well, why don't I just love myself? And and not in a narcissistic way. It's not about grandiose self-importance. It's about saying I and me too, not just only you. It's you and I. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very
Yeah.
good. Very important.
Well, thank you so much. Where can people get hold of you if they can get hold of you? Are you open for them to connect?
Yeah, I'm mostly on X as lalamalauluru. So it's lalamalauluru. So lalamalauluru on X. And most people just know me as Lala on there. It's really easy to find me. And then on YouTube, I'm my gamer tag name, which is Mellisa Mouse. So it's Melisa Mouse. My friends used to sing it Mouse. So it's just Melissa spelled different than most. It's two L's and one S.
Yeah, I'll put the details below as well. Yeah. But Melissa, thank you so much for sharing. It was lovely meeting you. And
Nice meeting you.
I will post all your details below. Okay.
Very
All
nice to
right.
meet you. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
likewise. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to the channel below. It helps YouTube to send you more content like this, and you'll be the first to know when a new video is released. To watch my most recent uploads, click on the cards above.